A plumber came to our house today to fix one of the toilets, and I told him that he didn't have to wear a mask. Now, there are some people who are saying that they refuse to let people into their houses if they're wearing a mask. I'm on the my body, my choice scale about these kind of things. If you want to wear a mask, but don't expect me to wear one. But he took it off, and we were talking about how I got tested and I'm COVID clear, my parents are COVID clear, and all the rest of it. This leads on to an article in today's Irish Mirror. Cove idiot gets jail sentence. Now, any opportunity to sneer at or salivate about anti-maskers, the mainstream media jumps on it, and then they wonder why they're treated with increasing contempt. I looked at the article. It's about a Martin Stokes who was jailed, I think, yesterday for not wearing a mask, ostensibly according to the article. I looked closer at it. I'd like to see the summons sheet. Not the charge sheet, the summons sheet. I would like to see specifically what Mr. Stokes was charged with. I'll get back to you on that one. I'll look closer into it. But it turns out, he was behaving aggressively and antisocially in a shopping centre in Navan. Only an hour from Dublin, Navan. He was behaving aggressively in a shopping centre in Navan, and he refused to leave when asked to do so. And, he did all those things that I've been going on about since August. So that kind of person is absolutely gold dust to the mainstream media. And you see, what happens is it's clickbait, visual clickbait in a sense. It's clickbait when the article is online, but it's also clickbait if people are in the shops, and that's on the front cover of the Mirror. I'm not sure it is on the front cover of today's Mirror, I don't know. But they see the article, Cove idiot jailed. And that headline bores its way into the normie's head. And they don't look any further. And even if they do look further, they don't think to undo the bias that's been put in their head by seeing that initial headline. Cove idiot jailed for not wearing a mask, or something similar. I don't know exactly what the headline in the Mirror. It used Cove idiot. That's really clever. I think Terry Prone got 100,000 for inventing that term. Cove idiot. Oh gosh, Cove. It's so clever. But again, it's the same thing. The man was antisocial. He was aggressive when he was apprehended by the staff. He refused to do what he was told. He refused to leave. He didn't even claim his exemption in the right way and say, look, I'm claiming an exemption for difficulty breathing and for extreme distress. No. He acted up. So, in my opinion, it's similar to previous jailings or previous convictions that people have got in Ireland since August of last year, whereby the primary charge they've been brought before the district court on is one of antisocial behaviour. And then secondary to it, and an aggravating factor in sentencing, would be the fact that he or she refused to wear a mask, and then, on refusing to wear a mask, refused to leave. You must remember something, and this is very important. The owners of a shop always have the right to tell you to leave. Even if there is a racial thing, if they think you're being aggressive or insulting or threatening, whether it's a racist issue or not, they still have the right to tell you to leave. So you cannot then say, well, they discriminated against me for being a traveller, or they discriminated against me for being African, or whatever. If it then transpires that you were misbehaving, the courts won't give you any mitigation for that. If you were misbehaving and they told you to get out, whether you're African or a traveller or whoever, then that's not going to count in your favour, and you won't be able to claim that they discriminated against you. A shop always, in the immediate instance, has the right to remove somebody who's being antisocial, or who's been threatening, or who is in some other way making the people in the shop, primarily the staff, but also the customers, feel uncomfortable. Here's something. A shop, a cafe, a bar, a chemist, a supermarket, their first duty of care is to their staff. You are not at the top of that pecking order. Their first duty of care is not to you, the customer. Their first duty of care is to their staff. So if they think there's a threat to their staff, you're out the door. And that's fair enough. I actually support that. I agree with that. You have to keep the workers safe in a shop. Somebody's coming in behaving in an inappropriate way in some way or other, particularly maybe behaving in a dangerous way, they've to get out. That's fair enough, and I agree with it. But we're getting to the issue of the media telling lies again, or not so much telling lies, but twisting the facts. How does the Mirror twist the fact? They make out, when you look at the headline, and indeed the leading, not the headline, but then below it, the subheading, that this man has gone to prison simply for not wearing a mask. And then you look at it and it's not true. They have to, because media rules require them to give the full story. Then when you read the article, you discover that he was antisocial, that he was misbehaving over a prolonged period in the shopping centre, that he refused to leave. I'll get back to myself. If I'm told by a shop, and a handful of times I've gone to a chemist and they said, do you mind waiting outside? We'll serve you out the door, or you can wait till all the other customers go. No, I said, that's fine. You can serve me out the door. I think there was another shop, by my recollection, that did that. I have difficulty remembering that particular one. Some shop I went to somewhere else asked me would I mind waiting outside. Certainly, I said, that's fine. And they said the same thing. You can wait until everybody's finished, or we can serve you out here. Serve me out here, I said. And, ask yourself why I haven't got into trouble. Here we are now, it's March. It's the 10th of March, and they brought in the masks in August of last year, at the start of August last year. And I have not got into trouble. What's happening? Why is this not getting into the media? Because all they do is harp on about people who aren't wearing masks. This is a big obsession that the media have. And you know why it is? It's because the mask thing has psychically affected people hugely. So when I'm in the supermarket and people give out to me for not wearing a mask, not the staff. All the staff know I'm the anti-masker who comes into that supermarket. They all know that I'm the guy who comes in and doesn't wear a mask. But when other shoppers get the hump about me not wearing a mask, it's because they hate themselves. Right? It's because they hate themselves, because they haven't got the courage and the intelligence and the competence to stand up to it. That's the truth of it. So it's projection. In me, they see a mirror of their own weakness and cowardice and incompetence and gullibility. That's what they see. So this is why the mask thing has evoked so much division and anger and pitted so many people one against another. It's why it's so evil. We didn't deserve this. Those people who are trudging around supermarkets with masks on them, did they deserve it? I'm not sure. Because as I said, I didn't get into trouble. So did they deserve to either get into trouble or not wear a mask if they didn't have the need to do what I've been doing? And I'm not tooting my horn here, but the fact of the matter is I haven't worn a mask once, except when I put that leather mask on for that silly photo shoot. Oh man, it stank afterwards. Ugh. But, in serious business, I haven't worn a mask once and I refuse to, and I'll go to jail for that. And I think maybe when you have that degree of conviction in your own head, yes, I will go to jail for that, that it gives you this certain charisma, perhaps, that people pick up on. Don't forget, though, that I wrote to the chief of the Gardaí for Greater Dublin at the start of August saying I'm not wearing a mask. We're seeing the hypocrisy of them as well. So many of the wokies are pro-mask. And these are the same ones who say, my body, my choice. But you see, again, I foil that because I've always been pro-choice in relation to abortion. Abortion's a tragedy. Abortion is not a good thing. But I believe that it is a private decision for a woman to make, and I emphasise the word private. She doesn't have to tell other people she had an abortion. She doesn't have to discuss her history that way. But based upon my acceptance of a woman's right to choose to end pregnancy, then I have the right to decide what I put in my body. And I'm afraid that's an inalienable right. Am I going to take a constitutional challenge as it stands today? No, because nobody has upset me. Nobody has... I haven't been jailed and I haven't been brought to court for not wearing a mask. So, and the supermarket that I buy my groceries in for my parents and me, I got their permission not to wear a mask. This is a good thing to do, and it's not too late for anybody to do that. Email your supermarket and say, I'd like to claim my exemptions under difficulty breathing and extreme distress. Can I have your permission to attend the premises without a mask? If not, can you please explain to me other arrangements? Would you like me to wait outside the door? I saw an article a while ago kind of around January, about a supermarket in County Kilkenny. I think it was in Grange na Gon in County Kilkenny. And I rang them. And the only reason why I rang them wasn't to trouble them. I wasn't doing the D-Wall stuff with them. But I rang them just to get their side of the story. And they said that there had been, according to them and according to the news, a large outbreak of COVID in that particular area. Many of their customers were very jumpy and on edge about it. And they were saying to people that if they weren't going to wear a mask, they could either order it in advance and collect it in a box at the door, or they could come down and wait outside the door and a member of staff would go and get them their groceries and they could pay by card or cash out the door, or they could get deliveries online. And I said to the person in charge, that sounds reasonable to me. So I'm not. And the woman in charge, it's a family store. I think she was the daughter of the owner. She didn't say this to me, but what I inferred from her was that they're very anxious about making ends meet. Because the people who run these shops, they're not making millions at that. Now, those kind of supermarkets down the country, they would be franchises of a bigger chain. I think it was, if my memory serves me right, it was a Super Value franchise. And they're very anxious not to lose money. And I don't blame them. And when a supermarket opens in the country, or when you have a small country shop, they've been hammered very badly by the whole COVID thing, those small country shops, and they're very valuable to Ireland. You go to a village like Mulranny in Mayo, and there's a very good shop in Mulranny, Doherty's Cost Cutter in Mulranny, and it has a small kind of supermarket. It does teas and coffees. It has a deli where you can get breakfast rolls and things. It also has the local post office from Mulranny. It also has a pub next door. It also has across the road, straight across the road from them, there's a garage. It's a clean premises. It's well maintained. The staff are courteous and friendly. They renovated it about a year and a half ago, so they're keeping their premises well maintained. It's not becoming tatty and unkempt or run down. They're in big trouble. I think I'm not speaking on behalf of the Dohertys Mulranny, but that type of shop is in very big trouble because they have a pub as well. And I would go in there when I'd be staying in the hotel in Mulranny. I would go down there. I'd buy a paper each day. I'd buy the London Times, which is slightly more out of the box than the Irish Times. The hotel would give you an Irish Times for free. I practically asked them to pay me for it, but I'd walk down and I'd buy the London Times and I'd buy a coffee in the shop, and they'd always say to me, do you want to go in and sit in the pub at the Turf Fire? Because they owned the pub as well, so I could take my coffee and read the paper at the Turf Fire. That's what these country Irish places are like, and it's very important that they're maintained. It's not just about buying papers and coffee and having a pub. They're a communal thing. There's a psychic thing about having a shop and a place like that in a village. They become the heart of the village. People meet each other in the shops. People meet each other at the post office when they're going to collect their pension or their dole or whatever, and it's only when they close down that you realise how valuable they are, above and beyond the notion of buying loaves of bread and a pint of milk. That, first of all, as I said, they provide employment to people. There'll always be a shop, there'll always be a garage, there'll always be a post office, so people are getting good jobs there that are helping them make ends meet. But more than that, there is an emotional and psychic thing about a village. It's reassuring when you go into a village to see that there's a good shop, that there's a post office. It's sold turf, it's sold coal, it's sold wood. These businesses are being bulldozed. And now when they talk about Build Back Better, when these cretinous psychopaths like Micheál Martin and Leo Varadkar talk about Build Back Better, what they're talking about is subsidising businesses that they approve of. Build Back Better is to give all businesses a tax break. No. These are communists. That's not the communist way. The communist way is ever more control. So let's say they decide as part of Build Back Better they're going to give money to designated businesses that they approve of. There'll be a load of red tape with that. There'll be a load of get-out clauses and difficulty with that. So that's not even going to be as much as they might trumpet it. They might set up another NGO with their Fine Gael, Labour, Green insiders to decide who gets the approval. Oh, we'd set up an NGO to do this. Your enemy is the mainstream media. It's what I started this particular thing with. Here we have today the Mirror deceiving people about not wearing a mask. Are they telling lies? No. RTE told lies about Varadkar. Is the Mirror in that article today telling lies? No. But what they are doing is they are being deceptive in that they are being selective with how they present the headline and the subheading to you. So you have to read beyond those to get the real story. In other words, that Martin Stokes behaved very badly in that shopping centre in Navan, refused to leave, refused to cooperate, so they had to call the Gardaí because he was acting up. It wasn't because he wasn't wearing a mask. It was because he was misbehaving. So you have to read that article, and then you have to have the intelligence and the discretion to be able to pick the facts out of that article and to see how they actually, in practice, contradict the headlines. People, the normies aren't going to do that. They're just not going to do it. They're not going to have the time to do that. People don't have the time or attention span for that now. I'm looking at Good Morning Britain. And Piers Morgan. Now, Piers Morgan, once he comes into the conversation, the invective and bad language, Piers Morgan, I will admire Piers Morgan. He has a certain crude Donald Trump quality. He does get attention. And GMB, Good Morning Britain, got attention. And people are watching it now, simply because of Piers Morgan. But the reality is, I don't care about Meghan Markle and Harry. And they went on an interview with Oprah. And what they have done is they have alienated themselves from the firm, from the royal family. What else could they do with their lives other than being members of the royal family, particularly Harry? What's he going to do with himself now? And you can bet your bloody life Oprah isn't returning their calls today. They seem to think Oprah is their friend. Oprah is not their friend. All right, Meghan. All right, Harry. That was a lovely dress Meghan wore, by the way. Lovely dress Meghan wore. Oh, yeah. But Oprah's not your friend. Oprah's a ruthless operator. Even I looked at Oprah and I couldn't watch that interview. I looked at about 10, 15 seconds of it, and Meghan's reptilian, cunning eyes and Oprah's dead eyes, and there's this Egypt Harry in the middle of them. Harry was the member of the royals. Meghan wasn't even part of the adventure. And she has destroyed her husband standing in the royal family. It's all because he's a cock who doesn't know how to say no. And as soon as she gets bored with him, and as soon as he becomes inconvenient, you watch what happens. And he'll be shipwrecked. He's estranged from William. He's now estranged from the Queen and the rest of his family. And I'm afraid one of the rules of the royal family is that when you join the royal family, you accept their rules. And one of the things that the royal family want the most from people, and I agree with the royal family in this, although I don't support the monarchy, I'm in favour of abolishing the monarchy, but one of the things I would agree with the royal family on is that when you're in there, they want discretion. Of course they do. Nobody likes a bloody blabbermouth. Look at Varadkar. Blabbermouth. Leo the Leak, they call him. This is this thing of using first names politicians. Thomas is right, you shouldn't. But he is a blabbermouth, Varadkar is. A big, narcissistic, attention-seeking blabbermouth who does not know how to keep his stupid mouth shut. Politics is dirty, big business is dirty, we know that. There's a lot goes on. Look at Davy stockbrokers. There's a lot goes on, Are we suggesting that Davy stockbrokers are alone in their disgraceful conduct? No, of course they're not. They got found out. But something that helps you in that community is that you don't have a big mouth and you're not going around blabbing. Where Meghan is a blabbermouth because she's a narcissist like Varadkar, to an extent like Micheál Martin, Simon Harris. They are narcissists. More than any of them, Varadkar is the one who craves attention all the time. They are addicted to attention. But the mask thing, I never recall anything like this. Different things have upset people a lot in the past year. But for me, this thing that they came around with in August of 2020, forcing people to wear masks, John Waters spoke out about it. And he spoke out about how it's not about safety, it's about control. Of course it is, he's right. It's a black magic ritual that you're being put through by being made to wear a mask. Then you read the law and there's all these exemptions anyway. Why have I not been prosecuted? Do I think it's likely that I will be prosecuted? I think the longer this goes on, it's when you're dealing with systems and system analysis, the longer something goes on, the more the chance is of something happening. That's a scientific principle as well. Do I think I'll be prosecuted? I think there's always the risk that I could get a Garda who just decides to go for it. But that'll be defended if I'm prosecuted. And there won't be any of that carry-on that Martin Stokes went on with. There won't be any of the D-Wall, Freeman and the land stuff. It'll be defended the right way. And you see, they know that. They know that. And then, you see, that would cross the magic line for me. That would be the last domino falling. That would give me a personal cause of action against the state in relation to the lockdown. So in regard to masks, I'm still not wearing a mask. I'll go to jail for it and we just have to wait and see.